Hey gamers, welcome to Short Takes, episode 2. Yeah, it's been a while. We're 4 months away from the initial escalation of tensions between the United States and Iran. Many people are quarantined, and just last week we got Trump escalating, saying that he'll give orders to shoot any Iranian ship harassing the US Navy in the Persian Gulf. And we just generally find ourselves surrounded by people who are prone to gatekeep or promoting ineffective frameworks or strategies like putting all your hopes in Bernie getting elected. But we've seen the collapse of a lot of that in just the past few days. We got people who, just took a look at Noam Chomsky going, oh, well, I'm old. You should vote for Biden anyway. And they're just like, hey, fuck you, old man. So with that in mind, I got this. This one is going to be a part refutation of basically all the kinds of bad takes on looking at Iran, and a part manifesto for kind of a way forward. And last I was speaking, a big part of that was, Qassem Soleimani, rest in power. Haj Qassem, he was. I think he's going to be important going forward because in both practice and symbolism, he's just the most effective rallying point when it comes to opposing this kind of siege imposed on all Iranians and anyone who, doesn't need a quart of Lebanese children's blood to remain, well, the opposite of flaccid. But anyway, all Iranians seem to love and respect him, and he actually fought for his country. He expanded the strategic depth. He spent 40 years fighting against the single most powerful country and the the outgrowth of all these attempts to control the Middle East. So he's reviled by all the right people, but his appeal seems to transcend politics, and it's pure triangulation, which in this case I think is not only excusable but necessary to a degree. Which kind of brings me to this issue of ideology. I get asked my ideology a lot, and I find like I have a complicated relationship because I find ideologies fascinating to study, but I don't. I feel in practice it hamstrings a lot of people. Like it's dogmatic. You see this a lot with any kind of socialists. Anyone who isn't a socialist gets this kind of ick factor, even when they agree with 90% of the same things. Um, and the same with any other kind of ideology that tries to basically fuse economics with politics, with culture, with all these other things, which in a sense would naturally seem unrelated, I think. But the closest undercurrent to anything I have resembling that is kind of my little club of very hardline anti-imperialists, especially involving Iran. And, all these people who, despite their political affiliation, either semi-ironically or totally sincerely, will take the hard line of anti-imperialism. And, we jokingly called ourselves besieges, but, some of the more controlled opposition elements, both online and, even in certain activist circles, have been working to push everyone back into going, oh well, gee, I don't know, nuance. We gotta oppose everything. The only revolutions we can we're um, support our failed ones. Except for the American Revolution. That was apparently alright, whatever. And I suppose the French sometimes just don't go full Jacobin. But when you speak of these older ideologies, you get into this issue called LARPing, live action role playing. Essentially, it's a term used to any political movement that doesn't seem all that serious to them, but at the same time, it's something fringe or extreme enough to be put outside the bounds of what's considered acceptable. Anyway, so I sometimes get called like a LARPer because adopting the sorts of lines that would be taken, regardless of what we may believe, what I believe personally, or what I would prefer to present myself as. That yes, I would take the lines similar to these. For those who don't know, these kind of little paramilitary groups who enforce the Ayatollah's line. But frankly, I don't care because I feel as if the stakes are too high to engage in the kind of navel gazing that a lot of diaspora people would do on how they would like their the motherland to look. So that brings me to the issue of who's really the LARPer here. Someone who models their ideas off what could conceivably be believed by an actual currently existing political structure, or someone who's engaged in this very stringent version of what, say, kind of post-revisionist communist utopianism, or and only found in things in Trotsky's dreams, or a kind of Jeffersonian democracy imposed on the Middle East from the outside. I have to ask, who's the real LARPer here? Because they're the ones who are essentially using their imaginations. They're the ones who are playing into a role. So to reiterate, you'll get these people, like I mentioned before, who will act skeptical towards any English-speaking Iranians or diaspora, or even just foreign anti-imperialists, who don't want endless Middle East wars, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're not totally closed off from the world like the U.S. tells us Iranians are, ergo you can't speak about this." And I'll note that I got that line from a dude who didn't even really speak Farsi. He was totally bullshitting me the entire time, but it's just a way to shut it down. They're almost 100% of the time being entirely disingenuous. See, it's all just a trick to get you to shut your mouth and let people who are totally talking out of their asses, way more than you are, people who don't know God, who don't know anything, people, Trump, Pompeo, anyone in the U.S. government at all, any of these think tank scrubs, they want you to shut up and let them talk, even though you've probably forgotten more about this than they will ever know, which is the real tragedy here. And okay, fine. Some people might be missing some cultural context or some things about language, or might not have access to some sources, but even that, I don't think really matters. My understanding of why anti-imperialism, especially vis-a-vis Iran, is important comes from not only my knowledge of Iran and great love from my peeps there, but also my knowledge of the West. I mean, if you knew of U.S. imperialism and what it was capable of, you wouldn't be inviting these psychopaths in, and you wouldn't be trying to ignore it as an issue. You would know the sorts of things Halliburton did in Iraq. You would know what they turned Syria into and how. You would know that you might even know the details of how Operation Ajax was done when they got rid of the Mohammad Mossadegh, which I will get into in a little bit. But you have no leg to stand on for this. This isn't, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, this is an argument that was already lost a long time ago, and now people just need to push the envelope as far as it will go. So I'll say that for now, what we need is real kind of ethnic advocacy. From people who care about Iran, about the Middle East, about Iranics in general, fellow Aryans, if you want to call them that, I advise against it. But real advocacy and real anti-imperialism in the current context. We don't need any more of these Vatan Farouche, Uncle Tom's cucks, race, class traders, whatever you call them, because none of the success. There's no argument for giving an inch on any of this. I've never seen one that's actually worked. None of these movements that operate in the diaspora or push back against imperialism are successful by acknowledging all these faults. That's how you would like to think about it. It's what might work in a classroom. It's things that might have been hammered in your head from high school, but no, it really just keeps the debate going when it should already be over. These successful movements, they never, ever give an inch when they don't have to. They never go on the defensive. So here I'm going to be taking the offensive from this point on against these competing narratives. So basically taking on these schools that are either promoting regime change or insufficiently opposing in Iran, or anywhere else for that matter. It can be applied to anywhere. Think of it like a case study.